It depends on the kid. Um, I think not being a great athlete is an advantage as a strength coach because I firmly hold the opinion that the two biggest ways I can give value to a team is number one, I keep their naturally great players on the field or court healthy. And number two, I take those middle of the pack players that have a chance to play, but they're not going to be great. If I can move them from being like a 6 out of 10 to being, like a 6.5 or 7 out of 10,
Yep.
that adds huge value to a team. Because number one, like if they can make more plays where they were going to have to play at anyways, that makes it a big change. Or if you're able to come in for just like 1 minute and give some relief reps to those like starting players that are naturally great and let them just kind of catch their breath, that's huge. So those are my biggest things. But coming from someone who was always injured and who always didn't understand why they weren't more athletic, I have a unique perspective that a lot of strength coaches who played collegiate sports don't. So I kind of use the example of, did you guys watch the Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you guys remember how they kind of talked about how, like, I can't remember if it was the 95, 96 season, but eventually those guys started to work out and they all got better?
Yeah.
That's an extremely common experience for people that are naturally gifted. Jordan was Jordan before Jordan lifted a weight.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan had all that stuff naturally. The weight room is not what gifted that to him. But what happens is these people who are naturally great, they find the weight room and they get even better. And so when those people go on to become strength coaches, they think back on like, oh, I could barely touch rim, and then I just started doing some squats and deadlifts. The next thing I know, I'm freaking tomahawking on that thing. So they think, like it's hard for them to disassociate that they were going to be that guy or that girl, whether or not they were in the weight room. And so they think like, oh, if I just do all this stuff, like they'll all have great experiences too. Me, on the other hand, I was great in the weight room, but I didn't really have the natural gifts that some of those college athletes do. So for me, I'm going to look at it. I'm like, okay, if we think of our weekly time as chips, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get X amount of chips with each athlete. I'm going to spend more of my chips on the stuff that's going to have more transfer to athleticism. So right now we've been working building blocks of change of direction. I've really slow cooked that because one of the things I learned working with middle schoolers is if you slow down, you'll get better results long term. So we've just been owning fundamentals of change of direction. And I'm sure you guys have all, at one point we mentioned the clinic with Tony Villani.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure everyone's heard of Tony at this point. And Tony puts out phenomenal content. And that's the type of stuff where if we can start improving agility, your ability to react, how reactive you are, your ability to make the correct decisions at the correct time and be able to cover enough ground to get to that spot, that's going to make more plays. And so if I'm looking at how I'm going to spend my chips, I might give that 15 chips, like let's say I'm going to spend 20 chips, or let's say I'm going to spend 30. Instead of spending 15 chips on change of direction agility and 15 chips on, say, your back squat, I might spend 20 chips on change of direction and agility and only 10 chips on back squat. And I will limit volume in that and spend more volume on the stuff that's going to help those middle of the pack players make more impact on the field. Whereas someone who's naturally gifted, they may go 30 chips on the back squat because they don't understand what it's like to not just naturally make those plays. And so that's where a lot of people think oh, we need a strength coach who played college because we want them to be able to talk to the kids and be like, hey, I know what it's like to get to the next level. I can talk to the kids and say, hey, I know what it's like to not get to the next level. And to me, both are really important and both carry a lot of value. But at the end of the day, 5.6% of kids go on to play college sports. if you're one of those 5.6%, you're probably going to play college sports whether you have a strength coach or not. So to me,
Yeah.
I'm not really here to help the kids that are already going to go college figure out how to get to college. When you're that talented, someone's going to find you. But if I can help the kids that are in the middle of the pack and help them, I'm not going to get them to the point where they're like that 5.6%. I mean, that 5% of genetics is special for a reason. But if I can get you to where you can look and make a little bit more plays like the 5.6%, to me, that's going to bring more value to a program than helping the 5.6% figure out what it's like to go through the daily life of a